Hey, well, welcome everyone back to our first new shaped Doug meeting. It's going to be new in three different ways. One is that we're planning to hold meetings to be shorter, so they fit into the working pattern at work, and to hold them more frequently, approximately once a month, and hopefully that will make it easier and better for everyone. And of course, there's no travel, isn't there? So that will be a very good back. Um, I'm not sure uh, now, Stevie. You won't know any of the people here, will you?
Just Lorraine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So I think we ought to do our introductions in that case. Well, I'm Martin Callingham. I've been dragged out of the past to chair this meeting. Um, I haven't actually got a big beard like Tim has, and I haven't got long hair because I've just had it cut, especially for this particular meeting. No, I'm joking, actually. Um, I used to work at Whitbread. I don't now, obviously, haven't for some time. Uh, we, it would be very good if each of you says something non-work about yourself because it sort of humanizes the group in that way. So um, I got quite interested in looking out of my window at the people walking by. I live in Soho. Of course, I've seen tremendous changes in the type of people that are walking by. But one thing that's very noticeable is that groups of workers are going out to lunch in a way and going out after work in a way that they didn't before. So you have a group of about 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people walking down the street as a cluster, going somewhere exciting. Now, my surmise is that these are people who've had their day in work that day and will come to work. And part of that day at work is going to be having some fun. In fact, maybe the whole purpose of that day at work is having fun. It might be interesting if later on, if it comes up, we could discuss that changing pattern of work and what we think it actually means. Um, so that's my interesting observation, or boring observation, as it matters. Could we move on? Jan, could you, as you're at the top of my list here, could you describe yourself
Oh, yeah,
other than
okay.
having dogs?
I'm Jan. I'm Tim's co-director of Doug. I'm also a photographer, a club leader, and something that no one knows about me is that I treated myself to a chainsaw after we had the storms recently, and
Talking of dogs, I just need to go and do the dogs.
they are so much fun. I wish I'd got one earlier. That's me.
Okay, Tim. Oh, Tim's gone.
Who's gone? Sorting the dogs out.
It's just not the chair looks a bit like him. Ian, how can you tell us something about yourself, or for people that don't know you? Something.
Yeah, Ian Sterland. I lead the location analytics or location analysis team in Sainsbury's Property. Oh, right, something personal about me. My wife and I are doing a self-build. We're halfway through a self-build. Now, clearly, we're not laying bricks ourselves, but interesting experience. And everything is true. Everything is true on grand design, so everything costs more. And there are a million decisions to make when you're not quite ready to make them. So if you're ever going to do it, increase your budget and try and get ahead of things. That's what I would say to you. But it's fun. It's fun, and hopefully it'll all be worthwhile.
How far are
So,
you? How far are
the
you?
roof truss. Yeah, the roof trusses were sort of lifted on Tuesday. So I've been away the last couple of days, so I've not seen those. So hopefully we will. I guess another month we'll have a watertight shell, and then hopefully September we'll be sort of moving in.
Tremendous.
Yeah. So yeah, good. All good.
Very brave of you.
Yeah, everyone says that, Martin. And then I think it is in a way. So I suppose the other thing that we've been blessed with is, well, we've been blessed with, largely good neighbours, and a very good team of builders. So I think if either of those were not true, it would significantly alter the experience, I could say.
Thanks very much. Stevie, can you tell us something about yourself?
Can certainly try. So hello everyone, I'm Stevie. I've worked for Whitbread for about 8 years, and I'm the data science and analytics innovation manager within our sort of commercial function, so across the business. I guess so. Martin, you were talking about changing behavior as a result of COVID, and Ian, you were talking about building stuff at home. Something I've been very fascinated about, but I haven't had a time to look into in much detail, is changing consumer spending habits as a result of COVID. Because all of my friends who are builders and in the building trade, although they're always really busy, were markedly more busy during lockdown, and that doesn't seem to have gone away. So although you can sort of make the narrative argument that people had more to spend because they were doing less during the lockdown, it seems like that's a actual change that's stuck around. So I'll be interested to see what other changes have stuck around, and what your thoughts are.
I have the impression that the cards have been thrown in the air, basically, and they're going to come down in very different orders, and then they're going to shuffle around a bit, and we're going to end up looking at in, I don't know, maybe 2 years' time, a long time, maybe 5 years' time, a very different world. But we won't really notice it's different because it will be appearing around us gradually. It will be.
Yeah.
Yeah, just difference happening. Because of my age, I remember the post-war changes that happened in Britain, which were remarkable at one level and unremarkable at another, and social changes didn't seem to be happening very much. And then they did. Then suddenly they changed. It was called the 60s. And there was an explosion in changes of etiquette, changes of style of relationship, changes of interest. And I think it's because it took 15 years for the impact, a global impact, which was the Second World War, to finally shake itself down into a new form. So I wouldn't be surprised if the impact that the world has gone through recently will take a similar time, perhaps not 15 years, but a much longer time than we think. It's not going to be a week or a month or even a year. And it's going to be so interesting to watch it, actually. So I think that is interesting. So, Paul, can you tell us something about yourself so everybody knows who you are?
Hello, yes, I'm Paul Longley. I'm a professor at University College London, where I lead something called the Consumer Data Research Centre. Fairly boring chat, really, from a sins. I'm a Fulham FC fan, and for those of you that deign to watch the Championship from time to time, we are top of the league by 11 points. But talk to anyone who's a fan of Manchester City, and they'll tell you Leeds can evaporate quite quickly. And we had a dodgy night with West Brom, I think, the night before last. I think that's about all about me.
Martin, can you go next?
Yeah, sure. I'm Martin Squires. I'm Director of Advanced Analytics for Pets at Home, which is kind of data science and a few other odds and ends thrown in there, really. Still trying to get Pets at Home to be members, but they've historically had a slight issue with conflict of interest, because the other reason and the other thing I'm here off the back of is I run one of the training courses for dogs. So I've kind of been involved in this for ages. So I'm kind of a bit of a hybrid of can I get pets in and actually turning up as a kind of trainer and friend of Doug to try to help Tim and Martin. Thing about me, I've got a variety of fairly geeky hobbies that vaguely involve data. But the minute the fantasy football one is actually reasonable, because there's about 9 million people play this globally, and currently I think I'm ranked about 41,000 in the world. So my modelling at the minute is more trying to figure out how expected goals and expected assists work. I'm paying far too much attention to actually how some fairly geeky football stats are working or not. That's me.
Right, thank you very much. Now, there's a lady who I haven't got a name for. I don't know whether that's it. It's you.
I can get into my WebEx account and my normal account. Hi, I'm Lynn
Hello,
Coyle.
Lynn.
So I head up our external consultancy business at Barclays. I'm doing a lot of research on how customers are spending and how it's changed over the pandemic, interestingly enough. And a non-work thing about me, I'm a big F1 fan, so I'm looking forward to the start of the season again at the weekend after a controversial end to last year. Should be a good one.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much. Now, Vicky, can you hear me? I can see your name. Ah, here you are. Yes, Vicky. Just going through the process of telling the whole group who we are and something extra that's not work.
Okay, thank you very much, first of all, for inviting us to kind of come and talk to you about census and transformation. So I work in the census and transformation engagement division at the ONS. And something about me is I have two very cranky Burmese cats, so I do apologise if they wander across the screen. They are good fun, they act like dogs, so that's a random fact about me.
Great. And Callum, can you tell us something about yourself?
Yes, first thing is it's my first time using a WebEx meeting, so apologies if I have some issues today. So yeah, I'm Callum Foster. I'm business lead on census dissemination at the ONS. So yeah, myself, Vicky, and I think Ed Dunn joining you today to give you an update. Something outside work. I like traveling. Got a camper van. I was in the process of buying a new one, but unfortunately it was destroyed by fire about a day before I was meant to collect it. So that's my exciting news this week.
Better than a day after.
Yeah, exactly.
Looking at the positives as we have to. Now, you have this section in the DUG meeting. I mentioned for those who weren't in.
Martin,
Missed out Tim, Martin.
I missed out me being introduced.
Sorry, Tim. I introduced you when you were. I did introduce you when you were a chair, but I hadn't noticed that you weren't there. Perhaps you could have described yourself now.
Yeah. So the reason I wasn't there was because one of my non-data facts is we have 3 Irish setters, and so I was letting them off to go for a run in a field sort of thing, rather than barking in the background, which is probably effective. Another useful fact is I other than supporting Arsenal, so I'm a bit miserable about Liverpool, I also support Barnsley, where I come from. And we were quite chuffed to actually get some points off Fulham the other day, which was, given that we're actually right at the bottom of that.
Bottom of the league.
We were really thrilled to take points off the very top of the league. So some of us follow Fulham for various other reasons. But I have the fortune to have taken over running Doug with Jan from Keith Dugmore, the reason for the original name, and I'll update you more on the sort of data stuff later. I'm a statistician who's worked with organisations but outside them for far longer than I remember, and I guess I currently describe my beard as a COVID side effect. I basically got COVID for quite a while actually, and rather unsettled and couldn't be bothered to shave, and at the end of it thought I'm only going to half shave afterwards, and it stuck around. So but it's quite useful for pondering, as Martin's showing as well. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, much to my wife's annoyance, that sort of finishing with the beard when asked any sort of question has become a distinct habit.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Thanks, Tim. The next item on the agenda, I know when I've been running these meetings in the past, I normally go round individuals and say, have you got something to contribute into this section? So I haven't been able to do that this time, so I'm throwing it all at you. The rattling the cage section is something that's bugging you connected to work or related into the work domain, something that interests you, something you'd like exploring by the group here coming. It's to get people talking, but it's also to get stuff out of people that is to be helpful to you. And I don't know whether I'm just throwing this to you. I don't know whether anybody would like to start with a topic that they find interesting, perplexing, or whatever. Have we got any? It's very difficult, I know, when I haven't told you
Well,
about this with you.
interestingly, as you described changes of behaviour, and as Vicky mentioned during the analysis, actually, it came up yesterday in some DMA meetings, another group that I help with as well, about how people are finding a whole bunch of the, particularly the credit referencing models at the moment, somewhat unreliable, and some of the more long in the tooth systems for credit referencing find change quite difficult, and so it was definitely a topic of conversation, partly in managing businesses, so businesses that previously might have looked okay have require different sets of resilience at the moment to know if they're going to be worthwhile. So I am quite interested in that whole area at the moment and what's happening and whether other people are noticing it. It suggests that Vicky, you've already started to see some of that as well.
Okay. Now,
I see Steve is put his hand up.
yes, Steve, you
I'm
turned your
also
hand
new
on.
to WebEx. I don't know what the etiquette is for this meeting, so
It's
apologies.
okay. We'll make it up as we go along. Don't worry.
But no, yeah, in terms of what you were just talking about then, so it looks as though we're doing a piece of analysis at the moment, working with the various F&B brands at Whitbread, and we're trying to understand a change in spend by our business-to-business customers based on what we think the driving factor at the moment is to do with the types of business. So are they in the construction industry? Are they in the accounting world, or whatever that might be? We've got various different ways of bucketing that. And it looks as though there is a distinct switch that happened. We have a period of time where we've closed all of our restaurants due to COVID. So you've got behavior before and behavior after. And I'm really interested in trying to understand, is that just related to, say, certain businesses having more profit to spend, more money to spend as a result of performance due to COVID, either being impacted or not impacted? Or is there a behavioral shift that's harder to pin down? And I would expect the second part of that would manifest in all of your worlds to some degree at least. So I'd be interested to see whether or not you'd noticed anything in your data sets that would express a similar sort of change. We've just started a piece of work, so I don't have too much detail just yet, but yeah, it's fascinating.
So it's generally individual consumers we're looking at rather than business behaviour, but I wonder if the patterns you're seeing are consistent and long lasting or just short term after things reopen, because we have seen quite a few cases where there's a peak in demand as things reopen and people have options available to them again, and then it settles down. So that's maybe one thing to look at.
Is that across lending for you then?
Not so much on our products, just looking at how people are spending more generally.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so things like when hospitality reopens, we see peaks in spend in that as people are excited to get back out there, and also related sectors. So things like clothing, if people have been stuck at home for a while, you'll then see bigger spend in it, but it'll settle back down again to normal levels. So yeah, it might be interesting to look at whether it's just pent up demand for those businesses in that they're holding events they weren't able to do for a long time, and then they'll revert to normal patterns after that.
We've been looking again with more the consumer side, but for us it's been more as we come out of COVID being the biggest thing to analyse behaviour with. We're getting asked a lot of questions on just state of the economy and consumer spending. So we make a lot of use of the index of multiple deprivation because it's a very good indicator of what people spend on which pet category. But what we've been getting is debates internally on which people are already adjusting their spending, because the usual curse of management, senior management thinking everybody thinks like they do. They're kind of going, but everybody can see the changes coming on. They know things are going to be more difficult. So surely they've adjusted their spending kind of patterns already. And you can see a bit of that in some of the more affluent groups of, you'll be paying more tax. You can see energy prices coming up, etc., etc. And then you've got the bit where we've been having to tell people at the bottom end, they can't afford to before it happens, or frankly, they don't read newspapers. It's like, until you actually get the tax changes their pay packet in April, then it's not happened. So we've been kind of trying to say, understand at what level a change is responding to the economy already happening versus are certain areas of the economy just going to kind of fall off a cliff in April or May. And we've got people asking, can we check what happened the last time inflation was high or the last time there was a recession? And we've been kind of having to go, that's a long time ago, and lots of the adult population haven't even seen it, so it won't affect their behaviour. And so lots of fun and games trying to figure out what's going to happen in relation to spending power this year, and how that gets affected is probably the big question we're being asked.
Any other thoughts?
Sorry, Martin.
Go on.
I was going to say, your point about falling cards, rings a bell in terms of they're not all going to fall at the same time. So things like behaviour not changing until a financial year is finished and there's a reflection in change in pay, or short-term versus long-term behavioural change. I think that's actually a really powerful metaphor for that. So thank you.
Ian? Ian, you're waving your hand.
I am, yeah. Sorry, I was unwaving my hand and coming off mute at the same time. Always a tricky operation. So I would echo that we're seeing in Sainsbury's, we're seeing changes. I suppose I would also echo what you were saying, Martin, in terms of I don't think we're going to land back in exactly the same place. So I guess since probably April last year, we've been seeing some decline in the gains of the grocery online market. So in simple terms, when in the 3 to 4 months when COVID hit, online grocery doubled for most of the players, in line with the market. We are seeing that sort of now, that behaviour backing out. It's still a question as to whether that's will sort of stabilise when we get to sort of April, May, or whether there'll be some further behavioural change. We are seeing that going back into supermarkets in terms of in-store shopping. We're also seeing that our sort of convenience stores that cater for workplace populations are also rebuilding their sales, albeit slowly. And I suppose more anecdotal evidence. So our offices in Holborn in London, quite a lot of people are going in Tuesday to Thursday, not Mondays, not Fridays. So there's definitely been a return, return to that sort of behaviour as well. But I also think that there are so many uncertainties going forward, not least, as we've said, or as many of you said, with consumer spending, price inflation, and particularly, I think, oil and gas prices. Quite how that's going to play into, mobility changes, I don't know. But clearly, household budgets, I think, are going to be really squeezed when we start going into the summer. But it's really going to bite when we sort of, I suppose, start getting into the middle of winter and coming out of winter next year, because that's when obviously energy use is at its highest. So yeah, like I say, we are seeing things kind of coming back, but I don't think they're going to land in exactly the same place.
On the travelling into the office, do you think there's going to be a regional sort of disparity? Just in terms of people who are driving versus other forms of transport? So Holborn, I would imagine that no one drives into the Holborn office, whereas we were steadily increasing the proportion sort of driving back into Stockport. The last 2 or 3 weeks, particularly with petrol prices, we have definitely seen people pushing back and going, just actually, I'm not filling the car up to be doing it. The amount of filling the car up has driven them into, I was coming in 2 days a week, but I'm only going to come in 1 now until petrol prices move back down.
I
I
think,
think, yeah,
that
I
one's
think
got.
that's right, Martin.
So actually, that's maybe a bit of a shift now as the prices are going up a lot, but we've seen fewer or less commuting still. So it almost seems like there's been some nervousness around people using public transport because of the COVID risks, and we've seen more car usage. So I think there has been some people driving to work who would previously have taken public transport, although the balance is possibly starting to shift on that now. The other thing I would add, just on the B2B one again, anecdotally, so my husband runs a small business and they've not been in the office for 2 years, so they don't see each other regularly day to day in the same way. So they've made more use of offsites and team events that would make use of hospitality premises to overcome some of that and do team building. So that could be part of what you're seeing on the B2B changes as well, possibly changing how people work and how they get to know each other as a team.
I would say on the oil and gas point, my partner is also a small business owner, and a huge amount of a lot of small businesses spend is petrol, depending on business. So they work in the dog walking, pet sitting world, so they're always driving around to lots of different people's houses all day. And so a change like the one we've seen can actually consume 100% of a yearly profit if it goes on for a long period of time. So I'd be interested to see what the impact, whether there's any support or not, what the impact of that is on particular portions of small business across the country, because that will play out in Whitbread as well. As a result of that oil and gas.
Great. I hope you got something that's going to stimulate some ideas, Stevie, out of all that. We now need to move on.